We are back. It is your boys. It is the We Are Something Else gang presents From the Cheap Seats. I'm your host CB, joined as always from my brother from the West Coast, my brother E Rich. Bro, how you doing?
Good, man. How you feeling?
I'm feeling good, bro. It's been a long time coming, bringing this one back. So, um, for the homies just joining us for the first time back a few years ago during our AMP days, we had Live from the Cheap Seats, which was a weekly show that we did where we incorporated some music, talk sports, basically found ways to talk about our favorite teams and just our favorite sports things that were going on in the world. So finally finding platforms to bring it back on, and we will have similar to back in the ant days, we will have live versions of the show, but few years, maybe a little bit bigger budget. We look at the uh all the graphics we got going on, you know paying a producer and all that stuff. So um things are good over here, but this is the new show. We Are Something Else presents From the Cheap Seats, and we're basically going to be giving y'all a rundown of sports topics that have been coming up, things that are related. We're huge fantasy football guys, so there's definitely going to be a mix of that in here as well. But to give you guys a little bit of a breakdown of the format, we're going to have the pregame, which, if you're familiar with the We Are Something Else podcast, it's going to be very similar to our Let's Rap segment, where we'll hit a few more rapid fire type topics, things that we want to make sure that we touch on, but nothing that we're going to spend too much time. The meat and potatoes of the show, not to offend any vegans that we might have as fans, but Under the Bright Lights is going to be the main segment of the show. That's going to be where we really get down into one of the main topics that we want to be discussing this week for episode 0.5, as I'm calling it. We're going to be talking about some fantasy football draft tips. We're in that time of the year. Preseason's getting ready to fire up. We've already had the Hall of Fame game played by the time we're recording this, so perfect time to jump into some of that. We know me and E Rich take our podcast league fairly seriously, and we know that that's going to be firing up soon. So this is perfect timing. And then we're going to end up closing the show out with a segment that I'm calling Extra Time. Really just an opportunity. We know that this is what people tune in for anyways, but an opportunity for me and E Rich to really just get on our soapbox, talk about something that we really either feel passionate about or just feel like isn't really getting the time to shine that it deserves, or just give our opinion uninterrupted, unless we really want the other gentleman to be involved in it. You know what I mean? So E, what do you think? You think we're bringing this back the right way?
Of course, man. You know what? I think people have been asking for it. We just have to, you you and I have very unique schedules, shall we say? And I don't think they really know what they're asking for of us talking about sports. This can be a long show. You know what I mean? This could be, but we're not gonna. It's not gonna be a long show. We're not gonna do that. It is coined the point five, right? So
Mm-hmm.
this is just a little precursor, get you guys ready. Um, have some interaction with the chat. I will say this: CB is known as the fantasy guru. He has many belts, hats, all of the trophies, and all that good stuff. To the point where I go to him and I give the same information to my boss, who then now sends me emails asking about who he should keep on his fantasy team, as if I know what the hell I'm talking about. No, but listen, I think all in all, listen, we got a good thing right here. We are something else. We're so diverse. Like I said, it don't stop. So you know what I mean. They're gonna get the sports side of this. They can get the other stuff. So I'm ready for it, and you already know how I feel about you, bro. So let's get the show going.
Bang, bang. Yeah. So let's jump right into it. The first segment that we will have on the show is going to be the pregame. before every good party. You know, you need to pregame. Before every big time event, you're typically going to tailgate. You know, that's what this is. On a full length show, you might get a full like a few topics here, but this week there's really just one that I wanted to make sure that we got a little bit of shine on, and it's my boy Terry needs to get paid. He's asking for a new contract, and the Washington Commanders coming off the best season. Here's the thing. I've been alive for a Super Bowl. I was young enough. I tell everyone I was blacked out. I don't remember any of that stuff. You know what I mean? So the best season in my like conscious lifetime. And the guy that really has stuck by the franchise over these last number of years, you know, who I'm a fan. This isn't my money. I just feel like they got the cap space. They should go ahead and pay him. But it is a business. We know how this goes. This isn't me playing Madden where I get to, you know, play GM and everything. But I know you've been following the story. What are your thoughts on Terry and trying to get nothing?
Can you hear me still?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just making sure, just loud and clear for everybody in the back or in the front, because you know we're all the way up here in the damn nosebleeds. Appreciate it. I won't name any names of where we got these damn tickets from. But you have to pay your players, and I'll say this. I think one of the things that we've always discussed is if they have the track record and they've shown that they've given you quality work over that time on the field, off the field, whatever the case may be. Nowadays, you know, the likelihood of a person staying at on a team and actually producing to where it actually, you know, equals wins, right? Because you can have a producer that doesn't equal wins, right? You're not going to pay that person, but you are going to pay the one that, you know, that's bringing W's to the team, because that's all it's what it is at the end of the day, right? It's about the W's. And he doesn't seem like a guy who's more about his personal stats. And if you see the connection of the two, I don't understand why you want to disrupt that now without going too crazy in detail. New ownership, new everything, great year, right? That nobody probably foresaw, like, you know, kind of probably overshot whatever initial thoughts that they would have done.
Big time.
And then here you are, second year, and you're already in a contract negotiation battle with, you know, with the player. It happens, but this is the one where I am kind of scratching my head. This is a little confusing, bro. Like, I don't know. What is your standpoint outside of, you know, you liking the player from a standpoint of a GM or even an owner? Are you saying that they should pay him, or are you saying like maybe his price is too high?
I definitely think that there is a business aspect of this that as a fan is hard to grasp, because I think DK getting the deal that he did, DK Metcalf getting the deal that he got from Pittsburgh is really what's messing this up, because DK, the deal that he got is really what the range that Terry is asking for, because if you look statistically, Terry's stats really line up competitively against what DK has done. So the way that these, I don't need, and here's the thing, I don't even necessarily know if this is Terry's stance or this is more of like, you know, his agent. We know how these things can get mixed up when we're talking about the business of the game, but like they're looking at that as like, okay, well, that's where we got to start the conversation. But then we just had another wide receiver, similar age profile, Cortland Sutton out in Denver. My man, he also just got an extension for less money. And so I have to, and again, statistically, there's a lot of stuff that lines up well. So what I feel Terry from the team standpoint is probably looking at, they're probably looking at a range that's in between those two. Which if there's going to be a hard line in the sand about him getting the DK type contract, you know, I can understand the team being a little hesitant, but I honestly think that if they have the cap space, like this is an and here's the thing, this is one of my favorite, we're going to be talking fantasy football here in a second. This is one of my favorite fantasy football players of all time. He's won me so much in the game, but I have to say, Tyreek Hill is like the exact opposite end of the spectrum that we're talking about right here. You know what I mean? Like this dude is typically he's in the news for all the wrong reasons all the time, and it's almost like a career diminishing return. So it's going to get to a point where the antics outweigh like the benefit of having him on the squad. Terry's the exact opposite of that. That is the perfect dude that you want to have the C on their jersey. You know what I mean? So I think it's one of those things where it's tough to say that, yeah, we're just going to go and shell out the money that he's asking for from the team side. But I hear from the player side, like, hey, if there's similar performance out here and I'm getting underpaid relative to those players, like, we got to change that. And here's the thing. If he was 2 years younger, we wouldn't even be having this conversation, because that's also part of the business of the game. Terry is about to be like 30 or whatever. And there's not a good track record of wide receivers getting into their 30s and continuing to produce. But there is an example recently, a dude who made a stop out in Vegas with the Raiders, who Devontae's still killing it. You know what I mean? And he's in his 30s. So not to say that Terry's the exact same level of player that Devontae is, but there are examples. And I think Terry's the kind of guy that he works hard. He's not out here doing a lot of the stuff that you would think would be putting his body at risk for this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, my final thought on it is, it, like you said, 2 years ago, we'd be talking about this differently. But I think that plays also into a part, because here we are saying that he's the complete opposite of a Tyreek Hill. You talking about outside of the field, right? That doesn't matter now. That's not even in play when it comes to the money that they're talking about business wise. 2 years ago, it may be, because they would say model citizen, great for the community, the whole night. That community thing goes out the window, because they probably view this as his last contract with them regardless. And then also, if he doesn't go past 2 years, can they dump his contract somewhere else? Or will somebody even closely look at wanting to buy that out with whatever's left on there?
Mm-hmm. Right. So we'll see, man. We still got some time for my team here to get it right. But it's been it shades of Daniel Snyder, and I hate that. You know what I mean? So boom. That's the pregame. Expect when we got a full-length show going on that there might be a few other topics rather than just one, but wanted to give y'all a little taste of that one. So we end up jumping in next segment, the big time, under the bright lights. Obviously the name makes sense, right? This is Showtime. This is in general what me and E want to talk about, really get off our chest, or just foster the discussion, because we're all about the engagement. And we got some buddies and bros that love to just argue in the group chat. So this is perfect. You know what I mean? Nothing gets the group chat going like sports related conversations and discussions. But this week, what I want to do is talk about some fantasy draft tips. And E, I wanted to bring you into the discussion. Obviously, we're in a league together. We do talk about this kind of stuff frequently, outside of the leagues that even we're in, and we're competing against each other. Because as you guys know, any of the homies, if they're in a league that I'm not in, I want them winning that shit. You know what I mean? One of my greatest accomplishments, I will say, is stepping in to draft a team for one of my homies a few years ago, and he ended up winning the league. He had a sports commitment that couldn't draft, and I was able to step in, and I got to share in that grand prize. You know what I mean? So I'm all about the homies winning these championships, and a lot of times it starts with the draft. So
Yes.
what are some of the things that you think about, and are there any general questions that you have that you think other people might want me to dive into regarding a fantasy football draft?
That's interesting, because you remember I actually reached out to you last year, right? For my paid my buy-in league. And I think that the biggest thing that, so for the beginners, right? You have to realize that your superstar is probably being guarded by another superstar, right? So if you're talking offense, right, you have to look at your matchups. Like if you're, I really don't want to start trashing on teams because I feel like you're gonna get cut off early on. But you know what I mean? It's like if a Chicago is going up against, like uh, a, a Eagles, yes, they won the Super Bowl, or a Chiefs, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to look at it and say, well, I don't want to play that defense because that offense puts up a lot of points, right? So outside of the beginners part, one of my biggest questions I had for you was really, how do you go about picking your probably second and third receiver, and let alone really your bench, because your bench and your kind of role players are the ones that are going to gain more of your points outside of you. The superstars are going to be superstars. Either they're going to go crazy, or you need the backup in order for them to actually pick up the pace of where they're not going to get too much eyes on, depending on what team that they're playing. So really, it's a matchup, right? Each week is really different.
Yeah, yeah, and everything, in my opinion, kind of comes down to the format of your league and what type of league you're playing in. So if you're playing in a league where, say, you have to start 3 wide receivers and you only have to start, say, 2 running backs, one quarterback, 1 tight end, you might just need to prioritize the wide receiver position because you have to play 3 of them every week. You know what I mean? So that's one of those things that it could change your strategy, where if you know that these wide receivers are going to go early, you're going to have to try to target a second and a third probably earlier than you might if you're playing in a league that actually maybe rewards running backs a little bit more. You know what I mean? There are also different formats when we're talking about, are we playing a season-long league, or are you doing a draft for, say, a dynasty league where you keep your team intact year over year and you just draft new players and you have a roster limit, so you got to cut people, or is it like a keeper league, one of these things where there's a draft involved and picks involved and these kinds of things. You're going to want to obviously build your team around certain stars. You know what I mean? Those are the guys that are ultimately going to help you get to the championship and try to win some money and talk some trash to your boys. But knowing the format of the league is going to help you throughout the draft in terms of knowing when it might make sense to prioritize a position, or understand that, hey, I think that there's a tier break here between, say, a current tight end and then the next set of tight ends. If you don't want to be stuck there, you might say, hey, now's the time for me to actually get this onesie position. Or if it's a league where, hey, you don't get, say, a tight end premium, you don't get any extra bonus points, for a tight end making a catch, you might choose not to prioritize them and instead fill your bench out with, say, more running backs and wide receivers before you even take your first tight end. So yeah,
That's an interesting point. And like I said, I know we're time crunch, so we can talk about this all night. I learned the hard way, and I think I reached out to you. Or matter of fact, I didn't, because it was kind of like a in the moment lesson. So tight end wise, I think I went with Kincaid,
mm-hmm.
right, from Buffalo. I had him in Fryermuth. Now Kincaid would get more yardage because the offense, right? They do more stretch plays, right? He's not really in there blocking. So I started him a couple games. He would get, a couple of games. I'm like, all right, decent amount of points. Then there'd be other games, not even score a touchdown, right? No points whatsoever. Then Fryermuth, right? Less yards, but because when they're like close to, red zone, he's a target, right? So then it became for yardage over points as far as touchdowns, because you get the catch plus you get the points for the touchdown. And like you said, it's really kind of knowing your personnel, who they're playing against.
Yep.
I mean, it really does come down to you really kind of understanding all aspects. I mean, bro, like I said, I reached out to you for a couple of things. I think my sleeper last year, and not to get too far ahead of this, but I think my sleeper last year, a few games, like a handful of games, Keenan Allen, bro. Keenan Allen. And you even saw it one time. I think it was in our league. Like Keenan Allen just crazy work out of nowhere some games. You just be like, what the F? You know what I mean? But again, then you turn around and he's got like 6 points like the next week, just depending on, what the team is they're going up against.
Yep. Yeah. There's some volatility there, but you want to be paying attention to the matchups like you were talking about. And but it's still one of those things that in the very beginning, when you're drafting your team and building the team up, I don't really pay too much attention to matchups in terms of that point in the season. There are certain things, if you're in some of these like high stakes tournaments and things like that are out there, you got guys trying to find any advantage possible. So they're looking at, oh, okay, well, who are these offenses playing during like the championship weeks, like during the playoffs? Those are things that you can look at, but just also know that, as we all see, the NFL is very, very year to year. Teams that are good become bad. Teams that are bad becomes good. Teams that have Daniel Snyder as an owner aren't allowed to win anything for the entire time that he's there. You know what I mean? So thank God, thank you, Jesus, that he's just, out in some boat, out on a boat somewhere in the middle of the ocean, nowhere near this team. But yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah, we like I said, Tiny Dan's getting the strays like throughout this show plenty of times. But
Yeah.
so real quick
And with the
before we
Gilbert
transition, oh my goodness, before we transition, the last thing I have, and this is kind of like I think it's a good question to ask. Again, a fantasy guru. I think it's a funny question, right? When is it too early to draft? You know what I'm about to ask. When is it like? I think it's crazy when people draft a kicker or like a defense and there's
Yeah.
still like 4 or 5 rounds left to go, right?
Yeah.
As just on a novice level, in all seriousness, right? Because I think if people really listen to this, I think they'll gain some real gems about this. You can't really focus. Do you react off of the picks that are happening prior to yours, or are you staying situational to what you have written down in the homework that you've done? And now this is for the more novice kind of one. I think this is where I learn from you. But what is that? What is your process in that?
Yeah. So defense is so just hard to predict. It's so volatile. Unlike offense, there is data, fantasy data out there to like support that on a year-to-year basis. It's difficult to predict which defenses are going to be great, and it's a lot easier to predict which offenses are going to be good. We know that this isn't perfect, but in general, we have an idea. The way that when I'm playing in leagues, and I'll be honest, I love leagues where I don't have to start a kicker or a defense. Like those are my favorite leagues where I don't have to worry about playing any of those guys. But we know that most leagues have them. And so the way that I look at it is I'm not picking either of those really until the last 2 rounds, like, because just load up on skill position players. Like you just don't know, one of those guys that you end up taking, could end up being one of those diamonds in the rough. Like you get Puka Nacua super late. No one knew what was going on with Puka Nacua. You know what I mean? Like there's things like that happen. But with these kickers and with these defenses, for me, it's easy. Kickers, just try to find an offense that's good and, whatever. But here's the thing. You're probably going to be cutting kickers, picking up kickers like every other week. Like don't stress over that position. When it comes to defenses, honestly, the way that I approach it is I literally look at the first 2 weeks of the season. So I'm not looking at like a full season projection of what I think a defense is going to do. I'm looking at, all right, which offenses do I think suck? Which there's no games played yet. There's no games that we've played yet. So it's all guessing. It's like, trying an educated guess. And I'll play a defense based off of that. You know what I mean? So like I see that, the Saints are starting Spencer Rattler week 1. You know what? It's probably a good idea to pick whatever defense is playing the Saints. Like that's kind of the thought process. You know what I mean? So that's my approach, and that's me trying to maybe I shed some light, dropped a gem, you know.
We got to get some. We'll get the production, but there's definitely gonna be a lot of gunshots fired during this podcast. Just catching strays, crazy.
My bad.
All right, bro. So what we got next?
Bang. So the way that we will close out each episode will be with extra time, where this is really just an opportunity for me and you to we can lay a question out to each other, but if it's really just something you want to shed some light on, I'm kind of like, for the homies and the fans that are familiar with Around the Horn, that show, rest in peace, at the end of every show, if you won the show, you got 45 seconds or whatever to kind of say your piece. And that's really what I'm looking at extra time as. We got the Is It Just E segment on the regular We Are Something Else podcast. And I'm just, the producers, the higher ups told me not to do it. And I said, we're not doing the show unless I give E Rich enough time to say whatever he wants to say. So that's really what we're going to be doing with this topic. And for me, for episode 0.5, I really just wanted to talk about Diogo Jopta, Liverpool forward that tragically passed away on July 3rd. 11 days married, man. He had been married for 11 days. Has 3 kids with his longtime partner, and him and his brother were traveling back to Portugal from Spain, and their car ended up going off the road and suffered an accident where neither of them lived through it. And so it's one of those things where we see these athletes, they seem kind of invincible, you know what I mean? You never expect to really hear news about something like this. And at least in my lifetime, as a sports fan, we had Sean Taylor. And then as a Liverpool fan, this is just the latest in a long line, unfortunately, of unfortunate happenings and disasters that have happened around the club. So for me, I want to just use this as a reminder for everybody to just, tell the people that you love them, like reach out and make the call. You know what I mean? Like, if your parents are still here, reach out and talk to moms, talk to pop this week. If you got a cousin, an aunt, an uncle, or somebody, a friend, anybody, you just never know what's going to happen. We don't know how much time we're given. You know what I mean? So just want to use this as an opportunity. Remember that, you got people out there that care about you. The world is better with you in it. And just make sure that the people around that you care about know how you feel. That's what I got to say this week.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's spot on. Like, there's nothing I can say about that. And again, I think that shows the versatility of our show. Like I said, we definitely pay respects, and at the same time, we can joke, laugh, have fun, be educational, and I think we want to make sure that we're interactive with our fans. So they definitely can post the same thing if they have questions for us, and also if they have topics that they want us to kind of dive into. My little tidbit before we get out of here. And this is for you. This is for the fans. I hope they post in the chat, or you know what I mean, or actually reply back on the pod. What is your team's your pre-schedule? Like, what do you see your teams like overall? Like, what's going to end up? Where are they going to end up at the end of the year for the good old Commanders? I'm definitely going last because my team definitely has all the work that needs to get done. But this is the part where we do this early, and we'll probably check in probably mid-year, and then of course we'll definitely be talking about who's still left, playoffs or even championship as far as teams. So where do you see the overall record of your team for this year?
So I've lived long enough to know that we typically have a bad season after we've had a good season. And I'm really hoping that that's not the case. You know what I mean? Like, I really want to believe in what Coach Quinn's got going on. And even though I've got my gripes with Kingsbury, like calling plays and the way that he utilizes the wide receivers in certain formations, like, it was an incredible year. So I want to be positive, and I'm going to say that they're going to get 10 wins. Definitely battling for a playoff spot. You got the Super Bowl champs in the division, man. So it's one of those things where the the road will not be easy. This ain't no this isn't the Wizard of Oz. There's no yellow brick road right here, bro. Like, this is going to be tough. What are you thinking?
Yeah, Pete Carroll probably put his foot in his mouth. I think he made a comment where all of his teams have at least won 10 games, I believe he said, which is wild. Listen, I'll be okay if we win 8 games, let alone 6. You dig? We are still looking for that high draft pick next year. Shout out to Archie Manning. But listen, we're not in the transfer portal. We're not trying to throw those shots out there. But I mean, listen, it's new coach, new quarterback. It's the Raiders have a lot to kind of work out. I'm just hoping for some cohesiveness and a good squad. I think Coach Pete is one of those coaches where they play for him. He gets the players to actually, kind of do what they do best. So I'm going anywhere from 6 to 8 wins. 8 wins, I'll be ecstatic. 6 wins, I'll probably I'll be crying in the corner. So that's where we're at with it, man. Well, listen, I appreciate it. And yeah, man. I guess at this point it's like how we want to sign off, right? The best way. I'm so used to us having music. Like,
I know, right? I know. We'll get it figured out. One of those things, we didn't blow the whole budget on the first half show, so just know that we'll be back. Thank you to producer in the back, all the good people working behind the scenes to get the show out there. Shout out to all the Wear Something Else sponsors, D Cup Customs, DC Shop High, and shout out to Gen X TV, man. So Wear Something Else presents from the cheap seats, bro. CB and E Rich. We'll see you next time.
We out.